Hey guys, welcome to my channel. I hope you're all doing very well. So I just watched House of Gucci. Let's talk about it. So House of Gucci is directed by Ridley Scott, and it is one of the most highly anticipated films of the entire year, mostly of course because it stars Lady Gaga. Now going into this film, I was super excited to see how it would tackle the subject matter, that mostly being the death or rather assassination of Maurizio Gucci, and of course I was really excited to see Lady Gaga's performance as Patrizia, because I haven't actually seen Lady Gaga act really. I didn't watch the previous film that she starred in. What was it called? A Star Is Born. That's it. A Star Is Born, aka what used to be known as a guaranteed Oscar, but now no longer is because she didn't get the Oscar for that role. But yeah, I haven't even watched A Star Is Born yet. Like, I'm not really eager, frothing at the mouth to do so, but I was really interested to see her portrayal of this character of Patrizia in this film. I feel like it was a better fit for her, and I think she looked absolutely stunning in the promo material. So yeah, I was really excited to see her performance in the film, as well as of course the incredible supporting cast, and of course the subject matter, as I said, is just deliciously scandalous. I couldn't wait to see how it all played out. But unfortunately, when this film was screened for critics, it didn't seem to be getting the best word of mouth. I feel like many critics just thought it was kind of meh, and some of them even panned the film. But I'm here to offer you guys my perspective on the film, because I feel like I'm hearing a lot of chatter, I feel like I'm hearing a lot of mess, but in reality, overall, I don't think it's all that bad. I don't think House of Gucci is all that bad, and I'm gonna tell you guys why. But before we get into my thoughts on the film, as per usual, if you haven't already, please be sure to subscribe to my channel and make sure you turn on your notifications so that you can be told when I upload next. Now, without further ado, let's get into this. So first of all, before we dive into the performances, which I'm sure you guys are very eager to learn my thoughts on, let's talk about this story. This is, like I said, a very juicy, scandalous story. Honestly, I'm surprised that it took this long for a film to be made about this story, because it's really incredible and I had no idea that it even happened. And in fact, I couldn't help but think when I heard the plot for this film that it would have fit in so nicely so nicely into Ryan Murphy's American Crime Story series. Ryan Murphy, of course, did the assassination of Gianni Versace, the limited series, so I feel like it would have just made sense if he had done one for Maurizio Gucci as well. Just keep the ball rolling on these assassinations regarding these powerful fashion houses. But instead, we got this film directed by Ridley Scott, and unlike some previous films that have focused on luxury fashion houses like that for Coco Chanel or for Yves Saint Laurent, here we have a film that dives into a particular period of the fashion brand that isn't really focused on the formation of the brand itself. At this point in time, at the beginning of the film, Gucci is already a known brand. It's already a luxurious, brand that is known amongst the wealthy. So it's not really focusing on the formation of the brand and kind of going back in time and figuring out how it got started to begin with Guccio Gucci. Guccio Gucci, who founded the brand. Instead, we're focusing on the life of Guccio's grandson, Maurizio, and his marriage with Patrizia. And we're taking a look at her influence on Maurizio and how that played out for the fashion house itself. Now, firstly, as a positive, I will say that this film does a great job of exploring the relationship between Patrizia and Maurizio and giving us an insight into how their relationship started. This idea that Patrizia wasn't, she wasn't poor. Her family wasn't poor, but it wasn't on the same level as like the House of Gucci. Like, let's be real, her father had founded a truck driving company, I believe. And so, they had money and he was running a respectable business. Although later on, Maurizio's father, Rodolfo, reveals that he had done some digging into her family and found that some of the people that her family are driving around in these trucks are actually mafioso, but we're not going to get into that right now. Okay, we're not going to get into that. I actually thought that would play a role in the events that play out later down the line, but it actually didn't, surprisingly. So we're going to move on swiftly from that, okay? But I did find it interesting how Patrizia basically belongs to the kind of nouveau rich class in Italy, where, you know, they're not super wealthy, but they're well-to-do. They've done well for themselves. She still saw the Gucci family as like the unattainable. Like, they're on another level of wealthy. They're old wealth, like old money, because it was the grandfather who founded the company, and they've been living comfortably, more than comfortably, ever since. And so she sees that and she yearns for it. And I feel like it's so obvious in the way that she does it at the beginning of the film. And I think it's credit to Lady Gaga's performance. We'll talk about it later, but it's credit to Lady Gaga's performance, where she kind of balances the naivete and the kind of wide-eyed awe that Patrizia has at the beginning, with a little bit of that cunning, with a little bit of that strategy that she also had to ensure that she was in the right place at the right time after meeting Maurizio the first time around at the party, trying to get into his good graces and trying to make sure that he thought of her all the time so that she could slide on in there into the Gucci family. And when it comes to Maurizio itself, the film definitely portrays him as a bit of a nerd. As a bit of a nerd, you know, at the beginning of the film, he is studying law, and he's a bookworm. Like, he's very interested in his studies. He's not really interested in being tied to the Gucci name in terms of, you know, being involved in the family business, as it were. He seems to want to pave a whole new path for himself, and of course he uses the privileges that come with being a Gucci, but he wants to do something new that's his own, until of course his wife whispers in his ear and he is persuaded to pursue a better role, a bigger role in the family company. But that comes later down the line. You know, it's just these two very different people that come together under crazy circumstances at the beginning, and we really are watching a love story play out. And I feel like that love story was very well done. I mean, it was very rambunctious, it was very passionate. Like, I think it was pretty convincing, though. I do think that Lady Gaga and Adam Driver had great chemistry. I feel like the relationship was convincing, and I feel like it does a lot at the beginning to establish why he was so easily convinced by his wife later down the line, even when it meant going against his family. Now, I have seen some critique of the love story that plays out at the beginning of the film, with some people saying that it was a little too melodramatic, a little too telenovela, you know, especially with the sex scenes. And honestly, I thought it was pretty cool. Like, I just thought it was really nice seeing these two get together and fall in love with each other. And even though there are glaring red flags when it comes to Patrizia, like just glaring red flags, I feel like I was convinced, you know. Yes, it's not classy, yes, it's not understated or whatever, but I did enjoy myself, you know, wrapping myself up in their love story just alongside these characters. I feel like it was a fun time. Like, it doesn't always have to be so serious, guys. I will say one valid critique that I agree with when it comes to how the story was written would be with how quickly everything kind of wraps up in the last act. I do feel like the first half of the story took its time in terms of establishing the relationship between Patrizia and Maurizio, and then in the last half it just became so rushed as it tried to, you know, deal with the breakdown of Patrizia and Maurizio's relationship and their divorce, and then her, you know, getting to the point where she would want to wish ill on him, to the point where she would want to get him assassinated. I don't feel like the jump between the Patrizia that we met early on in the film and that which exists at the end of the film was quite graceful. I feel like there were a lot of bumps along the way. And whilst I was convinced by the transition between the early Patrizia, the doe-eyed Patrizia, and the Lady Macbeth Patrizia. The Lady Macbeth Patrizia to the straight up gangster assassinator Patrizia, that was a bit of a leap for me. I also will agree that there were some tonal issues when it came to the film overall, especially when it came to Salma Hayek's character Pina. She is this kind of sidekick that Patrizia goes to consult, and she's able to, you know, see into the future and is able to advise Patrizia on what she sees. I feel like it was a bit tough to kind of consider this film as like factual and accurate when you also have that storyline playing out and taken quite seriously. And hey, maybe Pina was psychic, like I don't know, like maybe she was psychic, who knows, maybe she was a clairvoyant. But it is tough for you to, you know, take in the events that happened in this film as factually based when you do have this kind of mysticism at play at the same time. I mean, it's not as if it's a fictional story, it's supposed to be based on reality, loosely, but it's tough to kind of balance those two. And again, much like with the issues of pacing that the end of the film had, I do feel like it also had some tonal issues where it didn't quite know what to do with the character of Patrizia. On the one hand, she is this vicious, hateful person who is spouting a lot of spite towards Maurizio at the end there. She's leaving him all of these voice messages on the phone, which apparently was true, like it was accurate. But then on the other hand, you have her, you know, begging him, and she has this book that she made with their daughter. Apparently they had 2 daughters, by the way, so that's an interesting exclusion that they had there. But she is showing him all of these pictures of their happy family, you know, what went wrong and everything. So the film doesn't do a great job with handling the character at the very end, and it does lead to some tonal issues as well as some pacing ones. And also, again, with the whole Pina situation, the kind of hijinks that ensue when they're trying to figure out who to hire for the assassination, it doesn't feel heavy enough, like it doesn't feel weighted enough. All of a sudden it becomes a parody of itself, and I feel like, you know, a little bit more seriousness when it comes to picking out who would kill your ex-husband would be warranted in those scenes. But overall, when it comes to the story, I feel like I was enraptured from start to finish. I don't feel like the writers did a poor job in conveying just how crazy and fascinating this story really was, these events really were. I just think that there were some pacing issues, and perhaps, as I said before, this kind of story would have really lent itself to being told in a longer form, perhaps in a limited series as part of Ryan Murphy's American True Crime Story. As I said, like, it's really just such a perfect fit. Okay, you've finished your whole Versace saga and then you go on to the Gucci saga. It just makes sense to me. Okay, so next up, let's talk about the performances. I'm sure you guys are eager to hear my thoughts on Lady Gaga's performance in particular. Although I will say, as much as Lady Gaga is at the forefront of the marketing for this film, and understandably so, understandably so, okay, this is kind of Adam Driver's film. This is kind of Adam Driver's film. The film focuses on Maurizio, okay, like he is kind of the main character. It's really about his journey and about how he is manipulated by his wife, and how she is able to whisper in his ear and turn him against his whole family for the sake of grabbing more power within the Gucci company. So like, yeah, it's really his story. In the same way that like Macbeth is about Macbeth and not Lady Macbeth, House of Gucci is about Maurizio, but it is largely told through the lens of Lady Gaga's Patrizia. And I will say that that makes sense because, again, her story alone is also fascinating, so fair enough. And I would say that Lady Gaga is actually perfectly cast here. Oh, that might upset or confuse some people, especially critics apparently. I genuinely think that she was the star of the show, and like rightfully so. I think she was amazing. I think she was incredible. First of all, she wore the hell out of this whole look. She actually looks like the real life Patrizia. First of all, she looks, like I said, like the real Patrizia. Like, I think that's just perfect casting, just visually speaking. She's also a really great actress, I feel. Like, I don't think she's phenomenal. I don't think she's mind-blowing, but I think she played the hell out of this role. She became the character, and you could tell that she was really invested and given a good performance. And I think she did a great job doing so, especially acting against some like like incredible actors here. I mean, Adam Driver, he's nothing to sneeze at, okay? He is a phenomenal actor. He always has been. He's consistently great. And so the fact that she was able to act alongside him is like testament to how hard she worked on this role. And then you have Jeremy Irons, who honestly isn't even the strongest part of this film, but he's not supposed to be, so fine. You have Jared Leto doing something. Again, we'll talk about it in a second. He's doing bits, okay? But again, he's an Academy Award winning actor. Of course, we have, how can I forget Al Pacino? Like, Al Pacino himself is here. The cast is strong all around, and she wasn't snoozing. She was doing her part to elevate this piece. Now, speaking of the accent situation, I've heard mixed things. I've heard some people say that her accent was phenomenal. I've heard some people say that her accent is atrocious. I don't even know what to think at this point. I will say though, even though I'm not Italian, but I did grow up around a lot of Italians, one, and two, I did learn Italian at school. And I had an Italian teacher. I don't think that her Italian accent is as atrocious as some people are saying. I think some people are just trying to get attention by being all contrarian and saying, oh my god, she sounds Russian or whatever. I don't think her accent is that atrocious. Like, it's really not. I think it's inconsistent because there are times when she sounds more Italian than others, so I will say that much. But in terms of her, you know, accent overall being horrific and unrecognizable and whatever, absolutely not. Like, absolutely not. There are other actors in this cast who had worse accents. In fact, as much as I love Adam Driver, his Italian accent to me was maybe he had studied abroad. Maybe he had studied abroad, okay, in London, in Germany, in France, I don't know. But it's been a while since he's been back home because his accent's a little watered down. And then you have Jeremy Irons, who, like, where is he from? Like, where is he actually from? I would say, okay, and correct me if I'm mistaken, if you're a native Italian and you're watching this, like, Jean, what are you talking about? Okay, just let me know down in the comments what your thoughts are on this. But I would say genuinely, even though it's kind of a caricature and even though it's very much over the top, I feel like the foundations of Jared Leto's accent are very solid. I feel like he genuinely sounded like an Italian speaker. Again, exaggerated, again, not quite in the realm of realism, but it is a solid foundation for like an actual Italian accent. Again, correct me if I'm mistaken if you are a native Italian speaker. It's been a while since I've studied Italian, so maybe my ears are just kind of dusty. Maybe I need to freshen them up a little bit, okay? But those are my thoughts on the accents overall. They're a little bit all over the place. We have some native Italians here like Al Pacino and Lady Gaga, whose accents are quite inconsistent. And then you have Jared Leto, who's like doing bits, like, not gonna lie. He's doing something. But in terms of Lady Gaga's performance overall, she absolutely sells this role. Absolutely. She looks the part. She plays the part. I will say though, as I've been saying, in the last act of the film, she's kind of let down by some, you know, less than perfect material to work with. And then we have the rest of the cast, like everyone who's just in the background, at least in the eyes of many Gaga fans. So first of all, we have Adam Driver. Again, he's consistently excellent, and even though his accent isn't perfect, he definitely plays this role super well. You empathize with the character of Maurizio, especially at the beginning when they set up this whole scene where he's about to be assassinated, and you don't really know how things played out before then. He's such an empathetic character in that moment where you just see him innocently riding his bike and you're just thinking, who would do that to him? Like, what kind of devilish monster would want to kill this innocent man? Like, he's putting on those cuffs on his trousers so he can ride his bike. He looks so adorable. But then at the end, you know, it becomes a little bit more complicated. You still don't wish him dead, but it becomes a little bit more complicated. And I still think that the end could have done a better job of setting up why Patrizia would get to the point where she would want to kill her husband or her ex-husband, because, you know, he cheats on her, which, you know, yeah, but like death, that's a different level, sis. That's a different level. Also, like, before his body is even cold, she heads up to that house and she tells Paula, I think the mistress is, to get out, to get the fudge out of her house. And I think that's hilarious. I will say, again, tying into how much better the first half of this film is to the second half, the film does a better job of setting up Maurizio as this, you know, innocent, doe-eyed law student who ends up being exiled from his family because of his association with Patrizia, and he has a fun time with this low-key life until she thrusts him into the dangerous and scandalous world of being in the Gucci family. It does a better job of setting that up than, once again, setting up who he becomes at the end there, which is actually a very poor manager for Gucci and someone who misuses funds and isn't really able to garner the profit that the company needs, especially with its new investors. I feel like, again, that whole storyline wasn't really developed well, and I would have liked to see it kind of play out in a more gradual way. And we realized that in actuality, even though initially he had seemed like the perfect candidate to kind of groom into the next CEO of the company, he wasn't really knowledgeable enough or really prepared to take over the company in the way that his wife had pushed him to. Next up, we have, of course, Al Pacino as Aldo Gucci and Jared Leto as Paolo Gucci. Jared Leto's character Paolo was just kind of a laughing stock to the whole family. Like, he wasn't taken seriously by anyone. His father, his uncle, no one took him seriously, and apparently he was very mediocre at fashion design, even though he had these delusions that it was his gift, that he was incredibly gifted in that skill. And then you actually see the fashion show that he hosts later down the line, where he made that deal with Maurizio, and the designs are atrocious. Now, when his uncle Rodolfo was saying, like, don't mix pastels with browns, I was thinking, like, is that against the law? We could make it work. We could make pastels with browns work. Like, I feel like there could have been something there. But then I saw the execution and I was like, oh, hold up. Hold up. Rodolfo was right. That never should have seen the light of day. But yeah, the guy doesn't have talent. But I'll tell you who does have talent. I hate to say it, but it's Jared Leto. I've been hearing about how Jared Leto did some wild stuff, you know, to do some method acting, snorting sauce or whatever. I don't really care about any of that. I don't want to hear about any of that crazy nonsense. I will say that his performance is decent. Like, his performance is really good. As I said, his accent is solid. The way he portrays the character with enough goofiness and dumbness, but at the same time there's that layer of sympathy that you have with the character as well. He's able to garner that sympathy and empathy for him, which is, I think, a feat, because on the surface of it, he's just such an idiot. He's just such an idiot. And finally, another thing that we have to discuss, like, we simply must talk about when we're exploring the Gucci family, is of course the costuming. Is of course the costuming. Wow, what a delight to my eyes. Oh my goodness, the clothes in this film, mwah, so chic, so stylish. I was just envying every single person. First of all, Lady Gaga rocked every single outfit, and as to be expected, I would say my least favorite outfit that Patrizia wore throughout this film would be this, like, square neck cocktail dress that was pink with black polka dots. Didn't like that one. Didn't like we could have axed that one. It was very 80s. It was very, very 80s, just like her hair. But we could have axed that one, okay? Although it spoke a lot about the character, so I guess it was important to have in there. But in terms of my, like, dream personal closet, boo, getting rid of that one. Everything else, though, stunning. Absolutely stunning. Even the red satin dress that she wore at the beginning when she met Maurizio at that party was really, really beautiful. And again, it established this idea that, like, she wasn't poor to begin with. Her family had some money. It's just that they weren't on the level of, you know, the Gucci family. Although I will say, pairing that dress with these jewels was a little bit confusing, because to me it would have made more sense if she wasn't quite as bejeweled at the beginning. and then later down the line we see her adopt more jewelry, which she does, but at the beginning she seems to already be wearing this like diamond necklace with rubies, and I'm assuming the idea is that they would be fake, but maybe not. Like maybe we just could have dialed that down a little bit to establish that she actually leveled up once she joined the Gucci family. I'll also say that my guy Adam Driver, looking stunning in every one of his suits, his style was more downplayed, and that's intentional because it speaks to the character and his kind of personality. But his style was more like classic, again, old money. He wasn't as flashy, even though he did buy a Patek Philippe watch on the company's dime, which was hilarious. But he wasn't as flashy at the beginning, especially wearing these like well-tailored suits, kind of boxy, very 80s. Even though the suits were very classic and simple, they were still incredibly chic. He's still a Gucci after all, and I just love that. I love the idea of like him just having this effortless closet of Gucci clothes, and he doesn't even think about it. It just appears it just appears magically out of nowhere. That's just phenomenal. Oh my god, imagine living the life. And actually, I did see that the current CEO of Gucci did allow the production full access to a Gucci wardrobe, which makes perfect sense, and it definitely elevates the wardrobe of the characters on screen. And so with all of that being said, I'm going to be giving House of Gucci a 7.5 out of 10. So that's it from me. Now that I told you guys my thoughts on House of Gucci, it's time for you guys to let me know what you thought of this film down in the comments below. Please be sure to subscribe to catch you videos coming up. Thank you guys so much for watching. I really appreciate it, and I will see you in the next one. Bye.